My parents kicked me out with a backpack, a wet coat, and my grandfather's old leather wallet. They told me I was ungrateful, unstable, and lucky they had tolerated me. My brother Brandon stood in the hallway wearing the watch they had bought him with money they always claimed they did not have, and my mother pointed at the door like she was finally throwing away a problem. The rain blurred the porch light. My father opened the front door and held it there with one hand, not looking at me anymore, as if I had already stopped being his daughter and had become an item he wanted removed from the house. "You can sleep in your car," he said. "Maybe then you'll learn what refusing family looks like." I remember looking past him at the living room. The same couch where I had slept after double shifts when Mom said she was too tired to cook. The same staircase I had vacuumed every Saturday while Brandon slept until noon. The same framed photo of my grandfather Arthur on the fireplace, smiling in his old gray cardigan, one hand resting on my shoulder when I was 14. He was the only person in that house who had ever made me feel like I was not a burden waiting to happen. My mother shoved my backpack against my chest. "You have taken enough from this family," she said. That sentence almost made me laugh, but I was too cold and too shocked. I had worked since I was 16. I had paid the electric bill twice in high school, with money from a diner job because Dad said the month had gotten tight. I had given Brandon $400 when his first business failed, and he cried in the garage like a boy instead of a 24-year-old man. I had taken night shifts at St. Mark's Hospital because someone had to cover my own insurance, while my parents said adult children should not expect help. But that night, according to them, I had taken enough. What I had refused to do was sign a loan guarantee for Brandon's new business. That was my crime. Dad had placed the papers on the kitchen table after dinner and pushed a pen toward me as if my signature was just another dish I was expected to wash. Brandon needed capital, he said. The bank was being unreasonable, he said. Family helped family, he said. The loan was for $85,000. My name would be tied to it. My credit would be tied to it. My wages from hospital billing would be tied to a business Brandon had already run into the ground twice before. I said no, not loudly, not dramatically. Just no. The silence after that word was the loudest sound I had ever heard in that kitchen. My father stared at me like I had cursed at him. My mother cried without tears. Brandon called me selfish. Then Dad said that if I wanted to act like I was not part of this family, I could leave like I was not part of it. So I left. I slept in my car behind a closed grocery store with my knees pulled up under my coat and the engine off because I did not have enough gas to waste heat. Every few minutes, rain hit the roof in a hard gust, and I woke up thinking someone was knocking on the window. No one was. At 5:30 in the morning, I dug through my backpack for my phone charger and found my grandfather's leather wallet in the side pocket. I had grabbed it from my dresser without thinking when I packed. Grandpa Arthur had given it to me a few months before he died. My parents told me it was sentimental junk and that I should stop clinging to dead people because it made me weak. Inside the wallet were 3 things: a faded photo of my grandmother, a folded note I had never been brave enough to open, and an old Crescent Union Bank card with my grandfather's name worn almost white across the front. The card had expired years earlier. Still, I looked at it for a long time. I had $12 in my checking account. My debit card was already close to overdraft. My phone had 9% battery. I smelled like rain and old upholstery, and my work shoes were still muddy from the night before. I do not know what I expected when I walked into Crescent Union Bank 2 hours later. Maybe I thought there might be some forgotten $50 in an old account. Maybe I just wanted someone in a clean office to look at me like I was not trash. The lobby smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. People were standing in line with paychecks and mortgage folders. I almost turned around because I could see myself reflected in the glass wall behind the tellers. Wet hair, swollen eyes, thrift store coat, backpack hanging from one shoulder. A receptionist asked how she could help. I placed the old card on the counter. "This belonged to my grandfather," I said. "I know it's expired. I just wondered if there was any account connected to it. I need to know if there's anything left. Even a small balance." She looked at the card, then at me, and her expression changed in a way I did not understand. Not pity, not irritation, recognition. "Can I see your ID?" she asked carefully. I handed it over. She typed something into her computer. Her fingers paused. Then she picked up the phone and spoke so quietly I could not hear the words. A man in a navy tie appeared from the hallway behind her less than a minute later. "Miss Whitmore?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm Thomas Reed, branch manager. Would you come with me, please?" My first thought was that I was in trouble. Maybe the card had been reported stolen. Maybe my parents had somehow called ahead and told them I was unstable, like they always did when I resisted anything. Thomas led me into a private office, closed the door, and placed the old card on his desk between us, as if it were something fragile. He checked my ID again, asked for my date of birth, asked for my grandfather's full name, asked if I had any documents with me. I said no. I said I was sorry. I said I could leave if there was a problem. He did not tell me to leave. He typed the card number into a different screen than the one the receptionist had used. His face changed slowly. First, his eyebrows drew together. Then he stopped typing. Then he looked at me, and every bit of polite bank manager calm left his face. He went pale. Not dramatic pale, not movie pale. The kind of pale a person goes when a routine morning has suddenly become a liability. He reached for his phone. "Elaine," he said when someone answered. "I need trust services on a secured line. I have a walk-in with an old Arthur Whitmore access card." He listened. "Yes, that Whitmore. She has ID." "No, she says she was never notified." His eyes moved back to me. "Miss Whitmore," he said, lowering his voice. "Who told you this account didn't exist?" I sat there with my wet backpack at my feet and my grandfather's expired card on the desk. "Everyone," I said. Thomas closed his office blinds. Then he said the sentence that split my life into before and after. "This is not a debit card. It is a trust access card. And according to our system, you should have been contacted last year." I did not understand him. I thought trust meant trust like belief. Trust like something my parents always demanded and never earned. Thomas explained slowly. My grandfather, Arthur Whitmore, had established something called the Arthur Whitmore Family Protection Trust 11 years earlier. The card in my hand was connected to the trust file and to a safe deposit authorization record. It was not active for spending. It was an identifier, something beneficiaries could use to verify file access if normal mail contact failed. If normal mail contact failed. That phrase sat in the room like a person. "Beneficiaries?" I asked. Thomas looked at the screen again. "You are listed as the primary beneficiary. Direct beneficiary contact was scheduled to begin when you turned 28. I was 29. My mouth went dry. "No," I said. "That's impossible. My parents would have told me." The moment I said it, I knew how stupid it sounded. Thomas did not correct me. He did not make a face. He just folded his hands on the desk and said, "Multiple notices appear to have been mailed. I need trust services to review the file before I can tell you more." I had spent my whole life being told I was bad with money. Too emotional, too scattered, too dependent. Too immature to understand real adult decisions. But in that office, a bank manager was looking at me like I was not the unstable daughter. I was the missing client. Before I can explain what was in the trust, I need you to understand my family. And if you have ever been the child who was useful only when you were quiet, you will understand why a bank card scared me more than poverty did. Please like this video and subscribe if you want more stories about people who finally find the paperwork that proves they were never crazy. My brother Brandon was born 4 years before me, and my parents treated him like a long-term investment that could never be allowed to fail. When he struggled in school, he was creative. When I struggled, I was careless. Brandon received a car for graduation. I received a speech about independence. His tuition was covered because he needed a real start. I went to community college part-time while working nights because debt built character. My parents never called it favoritism. They called it different needs. Grandpa Arthur called it what it was. They keep feeding the child who throws the plate, he told me once, when I was 21 and Brandon had just moved back home after losing the first business my parents funded. And they ask you to wash the dishes. Arthur had owned 2 small auto parts stores before retiring. Nothing flashy. He drove an old Buick, repaired things other people replaced, and kept receipts in rubber bands. My parents called him cheap. I called him careful. He was the only person who asked about my work and listened to the answer. When Dad once denied borrowing $600 from me, Grandpa said, "Keep records, May. People who borrow your silence usually hate paper." After his stroke, I was the one who took him to appointments. My parents were busy. Brandon said hospitals made him uncomfortable. So I filled out forms, sorted pill bottles, and learned how closely Grandpa watched the way my family handled money. "Do you still have your own bank account?" he asked one afternoon. "Yes." "Do they have access?" "No." "Good." Another time, he said, "If your mother ever tells you something was too complicated for you to know, assume it was too useful for her to share." I thought he was just angry with his daughter. I did not know he was preparing me. A few months before he died, he called me into his bedroom after Sunday dinner and handed me the old leather wallet. "It's not worth much," he said, "but put it somewhere safe." Inside was the Crescent Union card, the photograph of Grandma, and the folded note. "What's the card for?" I asked. "A door," he said. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He did not laugh back. "If they ever turn you out," he said, "go to Crescent. Not your parents, not Brandon, Crescent." When he died, my parents managed the funeral with the efficiency of people who believed grief was a scheduling problem. Afterward, I asked about a will. My mother gave me a look so cold I felt like a child again. "Your grandfather had very little left," she said. "Don't start acting greedy now." I never asked again. Letters from Crescent Union did come to the house over the next few years. I remember seeing one thick cream envelope with my name on it. My mother took it from my hand and said, "Old estate stuff, not yours." I believed her because believing your mother is easier than admitting she has trained you not to open mail with your own name on it. The strange money around Brandon started after that. A commercial lease, a paid-off truck, a new business name after the old one failed. Each time, my parents had an explanation: a small family loan, a lucky tax refund, a friend who believed in Brandon. They never said Grandpa. They never said trust. They never said Maya. Back in Thomas Reed's office, my hands were still so cold, they left faint, damp marks on the paper cup of coffee his assistant brought me. I had not eaten since dinner the night before, and even that dinner had ended with Dad calling me disloyal. Thomas asked if I wanted someone with me. I almost said my mother because old fear is stupid like that. It reaches for the hand that pushed you. I said no. Trust Services called back after 23 minutes. I know because I watched the clock like the second hand might explain my life. Thomas put the call on speaker only after asking my permission. A woman introduced herself as Elaine Porter, Senior Trust Officer. Her voice was calm, professional, and careful in the way people sound when every word might matter later. "Miss Whitmore, before we proceed, I need to verify a few details." She asked about my grandfather's full name, his date of birth, my grandmother's maiden name, the street where his first store had been located, and the name of the dog he had when I was a child. "Rufus," I said. "He used to steal hot dog buns." There was a pause. I heard keys clicking. "Thank you," Elaine said. "That matches the beneficiary verification file." Beneficiary. That word kept hitting me in waves. Not daughter, not problem, not dead weight, beneficiary. Elaine asked Thomas to scan my ID through a secured system and send a live confirmation. Then she told me that because of irregular contact history and prior rejected third-party attempts, she would be coming to the branch with a trust attorney. "Prior what?" I asked. Thomas looked at the phone. Elaine paused again. "I do not want to give incomplete information," she said, "but the file contains several notes that require review in your presence." Please do not contact anyone about this until counsel arrives. I almost told her I had no one to contact. Instead, I said, okay. They let me sit in a small conference room while we waited. Thomas offered to call a hotel. I told him I could not afford one. He said, let's discuss that after trust services arrives. I had spent years hearing the sentence, we cannot afford that, from my parents whenever I needed anything. Braces, a decent winter coat, a laptop that did not take 15 minutes to boot. Therapy after Grandpa died. But somehow there had always been money for Brandon's launches, Brandon's mistakes, Brandon's rent, Brandon's watch. When Elaine Porter arrived, she carried a gray folder and wore a charcoal coat. Beside her was a woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled into a low bun and a leather briefcase that looked older than both of us. I'm Nina Patel, she said. I represent the trust, and if you choose, I can help connect you with independent counsel as well. I had heard lawyers speak before in hospital billing disputes. Nina did not sound like them. She did not sound aggressive. She sounded exact. Elaine placed the folder on the table. Miss Whitmore, she said, your grandfather established the Arthur Whitmore Family Protection Trust approximately 11 years ago. It includes liquid assets, a bond portfolio, and a duplex property on Alder Street. You became eligible for direct beneficiary communication at age 28. You are currently 29. How much? I asked before I could stop myself. Elaine glanced at Nina. Nina nodded once. The total trust value fluctuates, Elaine said, but the most recent valuation is approximately $2.7 million. For a second, the room made no sound. Not the air conditioner, not the hallway, not my own breathing. $2.7 million did not feel like money. It felt like being told gravity had been optional the whole time, and everyone but me had known. I laughed once, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to hold the number correctly. No, I said. No, that can't be right. I have $12. I slept in my car last night. Nina's face changed, just a fraction. You slept in your car last night? I nodded. Why? The shame came before the anger. That is the part people who grew up as the scapegoat understand. You can be wronged and still feel embarrassed for making the room notice. My parents kicked me out, I said. I wouldn't sign a loan guarantee for my brother. Elaine closed her eyes for 1 second. Nina opened her briefcase. Then we need to move carefully, she said, because your grandfather's file contains a specific instruction for that scenario. That was when I finally opened the folded note from the wallet. My hands shook so badly that Nina offered to do it for me. I said no. It felt like the first thing in that room that belonged only to me. The paper was old but clean. Grandpa's handwriting leaned slightly to the right, the way it always had on birthday cards. May, if you are reading this in a bank instead of at home, then I am sorry. It means they made you feel alone before you found the door. You were never alone. I could not force them to love you fairly. I could not make them stop feeding Brandon with both hands and asking you to be grateful for crumbs. But I could protect what I built from becoming another weapon against you. Do not sign anything for them. Do not let them tell you this is family money. It is protection money. Use it to become safe first. Proud later. Love, Grandpa. I read the note 3 times before I could look up. Nina slid a box of tissues toward me without saying anything. I hated that I needed one. Elaine then opened the trust summary. The trust did not simply leave me money. It left instructions. Grandpa had created staged protections because he knew my parents better than I wanted to know them. There was a living allowance provision if I was ever displaced from my home by a family member. There was an emergency housing provision. There was a rule that no funds could be released to my parents, Brandon, or any business entity related to Brandon without direct written approval from me after independent counsel. There was a note that said, in plain language, if Maya is told she has no assets, no family support, or no right to ask questions, beneficiary counsel is to review all communications for coercion. Grandpa had not just loved me, he had anticipated them. Elaine showed me copies of notices mailed to the family address. My address. The house I had been thrown out of. Notice of beneficiary eligibility. Notice of trust contact update. Notice of direct access scheduling. Everyone had been sent months before and after my 28th birthday. I had seen none of them. Then came the part that changed the question. At first, I thought my parents had hidden good news because they wanted control. That was bad enough. But the file was thicker than hidden mail. Elaine pulled out a page marked Rejected Third-Party Communication Directive. My name was typed at the top. Below it was a statement claiming that I preferred all trust communication to go through my parents because I was overwhelmed by financial matters. At the bottom was a signature that tried to look like mine. It failed, not because the letters were wrong, because it was too neat. I signed my name quickly, with the M almost folded into the A. Whoever signed that page had copied a school form or old birthday card and treated my name like a drawing. "We rejected this," Elaine said. "The notary stamp raised concerns, and your signature did not match the verification card your grandfather left. But the attempt was documented." Nina turned the page toward me. "Do you recognize this?" I shook my head. "Did you authorize anyone to redirect trust communications?" "No." "Did you authorize your parents to inquire about hardship release?" I looked at her. What is hardship release? That was when the room shifted. The story was no longer, my parents hit a trust. The story became, my parents tried to reach it. Elaine showed me inquiry logs from 2 years earlier. My father had asked whether funds from the Arthur Whitmore Trust could be released for a family emergency. My mother had asked whether beneficiary funds could be managed by a parent if the beneficiary was financially immature. Brandon's name appeared once in a note from a phone call, attached to the phrase business preservation. Business preservation. That meant Brandon's failing dream had been dressed up as an emergency and brought to the door of the trust Grandpa built to protect me. They were trying to use it, I said. Nina did not soften the answer. It appears they were trying to find a way. I thought of Dad at the kitchen table, pushing the loan papers toward me. I thought of Mom saying I had taken enough. I thought of Brandon's watch catching the hallway light while I carried my backpack into the rain. They had not kicked me out because I had nothing. They had kicked me out before they understood I was the one person in the family Grandpa had made hard to rob. Nina asked for permission to contact my parents only through a formal preservation notice. She explained that because there were possible intercepted communications, possible forged directions, and attempted unauthorized inquiries, every phone call or text could matter. Do not argue with them, she said. Do not explain the trust. Do not try to make them confess emotionally. People like this confess administratively when they think they are managing optics. I almost smiled through my tears. Grandpa said people hate paper, Nina's expression softened. Your grandfather understood litigation before litigation arrived. They arranged emergency housing for me that afternoon from the trust's displacement provision. Not a mansion, not some movie version of Suddenly Rich. A clean, extended stay suite near the hospital with a small kitchenette, a bed that did not smell like rain, and a parking lot where no one could bang on my window and tell me I was ungrateful. Elaine arranged for a financial advisor to meet with me later in the week. Nina gave me a temporary phone number to use for trust-related calls. Thomas Reed walked me to the side exit so I did not have to pass through the lobby, crying. Before I left the bank, he handed me the old card in a clear sleeve. Keep this, he said. It did what it was supposed to do. In the hotel room that night, I took a shower so hot it made my skin red. Then I sat on the bed in a towel and turned on my phone. There were 43 missed calls. Mom, Dad, Brandon, Mom again, Dad again. A voicemail from my father started with a tone I knew too well. Not sorry, but irritated that I had made sorry necessary. Maya, this has gone far enough. Your mother is worried sick. If you're at some shelter making us look bad, stop it. Come home and talk like an adult. Another voicemail from Mom was softer. Honey, you misunderstood last night. Your father was angry. Brandon is under a lot of pressure. You know how he gets when he's scared. Come home and we can fix this. Then Brandon, Maya, don't be stupid. Whatever you think Grandpa left you, you can't handle that kind of responsibility alone. Mom and Dad know how to manage it. Just call them before you make a mess. I froze. Whatever you think Grandpa left you. I had not told anyone about the trust. I had not even known about it 12 hours earlier. Brandon had just said enough. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Nina. Her reply came 9 minutes later. Do not respond. This is useful. The next morning, a formal preservation notice went out to my parents by email and certified mail. It instructed them to preserve all documents, emails, text messages, mail records, financial records, and communications related to Arthur Whitmore, Crescent Union Bank, the trust, and any attempted use of my name. It also instructed them not to contact Crescent Union on my behalf. They did not take it well. My mother texted first. You brought a lawyer into family business? After everything we did for you? Then, that money was never supposed to divide us. Then, your grandfather wanted the family taken care of. Then, the text that made Nina call me instead of email. We protected you from ruining it. Nina asked me to screenshot the message and send the original thread. Do you understand what she just did? Nina asked. She blamed me? She admitted knowledge. Not complete knowledge, but enough to matter. Dad called from a blocked number that afternoon. I did not answer. He left a voicemail anyway. You think a bank account makes you better than us? You have no idea what your grandfather promised. He knew Brandon needed help. You were a child when he made those documents. I was 29, but in my father's mouth, I had always remained whatever age made control easiest. Brandon texted me a screenshot of his business account overdraft. Happy now? If the loan doesn't go through, people lose jobs. Brandon had 2 part-time employees and 1 cousin who helped on weekends. I sent everything to Nina. This is going to get louder, she warned me. Families that rely on pressure usually escalate when pressure stops working. She was right. My parents told relatives I had been manipulated by a bank. My aunt left a voicemail saying, money changes people. A cousin messaged me that Brandon was depressed and I should think about what Grandpa would have wanted. That last line almost got me. Because I had spent my whole life being trained to doubt myself whenever someone invoked family. Then I reread Grandpa's letter. Do not let them tell you this is family money. It is protection money. Nina scheduled a formal meeting at Crescent Union for the following Monday. My parents demanded to attend after Dad called the bank and was told no information could be given to him. Brandon insisted he should be there because he was affected by the outcome. Nina said he could attend if I wanted him there. I almost said no. Then I thought of him in the hallway, silent while I was thrown into the rain, wearing a watch bought with money my parents claimed did not exist. Let him come, I said. The meeting room at Crescent Union had a long table, frosted glass walls, and a small speakerphone in the middle. Thomas Reed sat at one end. Elaine Porter sat beside him with the trust file. Nina sat beside me. A security officer stood near the door, not threatening anyone, just visible enough to remind my father that volume was not authority in that building. My parents arrived together. Mom wore church clothes, which she always did when she wanted strangers to assume she was the kind of woman who had never lied in a room with fluorescent lights. Dad wore his good jacket and the expression he used with car salesmen. Brandon came last, looking tired and angry, his phone already in his hand. Mom reached for me as if we were there for reconciliation. Nina spoke before her hand touched my shoulder. Please take your seat, Mrs. Whitmore. This is a formal trust meeting. My mother's eyes flicked to Nina. And you are? Nina Patel, counsel for the trust for purposes of beneficiary protection and records review. Dad snorted. Beneficiary protection. From her own parents. That's rich. Thomas Reed opened a folder. Mr. Whitmore, this meeting is being documented. Please direct comments through counsel. Dad looked at Thomas like bank managers were supposed to be impressed by fathers. I don't need permission to speak to my daughter. For the first time in my life, I heard myself answer before fear edited me. In this room, you do. Brandon looked up from his phone. Mom stared at me like I had slapped her. Nina placed the old access card in its clear sleeve on the table. We are here to clarify beneficiary status, unauthorized inquiries, and disputed family communications regarding the Arthur Whitmore Family Protection Trust. My mother clasped her hands. Arthur was my father. He trusted me. Maya doesn't understand how these things work. Elaine turned a page. Arthur Whitmore specifically excluded parental management after Maya reached the age of 28, unless Maya independently requested it through counsel. Dad leaned back. Because he was old and paranoid. I felt that sentence like a hand across the face. Nina's voice stayed level. He was precise. There is a difference. Elaine summarized the trust. Not the full balance at first, but the structure. Primary beneficiary, Maya Whitmore. Excluded parties for unauthorized release, Linda Whitmore, Raymond Whitmore, Brandon Whitmore, and any business entity controlled by those parties. Direct beneficiary access at 28. Emergency displacement provision. Communication integrity provision. Mom's face tightened with every phrase. Brandon interrupted. So she just gets everything? That's insane. I was his grandson too. Elaine looked at him. There are small specific gifts listed for other relatives. They were distributed through the estate process. This trust is separate. Brandon's mouth opened, then closed. I remembered his speech at the funeral about legacy. Apparently, legacy had sounded better when he thought it was his. Nina then opened the section I had been waiting for and dreading. We also need to discuss attempted communications. She placed copies of the rejected directive on the table. My forged signature sat there under bright conference room lights. My mother looked away too fast. Nina saw it. So did I. Maya, Nina said. For the record, did you sign this document? No. Did you authorize anyone to sign it? No. Did you request that trust communications be directed to your parents? No. Dad's chair scraped. This is ridiculous. That was years ago. We were trying to simplify things. She was overwhelmed. Thomas Reed slid another page forward. Mr. Whitmore, this is the call log from March 14th, 2 years ago. You asked whether beneficiary funds could be released for what you described as family business preservation. Dad's face changed. Not much. Enough. I asked a question, he said. Elaine placed another page down. This is a follow-up inquiry from Mrs. Whitmore, asking whether a parent could manage distributions if a beneficiary was financially immature. Mom began to cry. This time there were tears, but they looked angry. We were protecting her, she said. Nina looked directly at her. From what? From making mistakes, from being taken advantage of, from blowing through money she did not earn. There it was, the truth dressed as concern. I heard my grandfather's voice in my head. People who borrow your silence usually hate paper. Nina slid Mom's text message onto the table. We protected you from ruining it. Mrs. Whitmore, Nina said, when you sent this message, what did you mean by it? Mom looked at the paper, then at me. For a second, she almost looked like my mother. Not the performance, not the church clothes. My mother, tired and cornered and still unable to choose me when choosing me would cost her control. Maya has always been emotional, she said. Arthur adored her, but he didn't see how she really was. I laughed once. Everyone looked at me. I had not planned to laugh. It just escaped. Grandpa saw exactly how I was, I said. That's why he knew I kept records. That's why he knew I would eventually walk into this bank instead of begging you to love me fairly. Brandon leaned forward. Do you even hear yourself? You sound crazy. This could ruin me. I turned to him. No, Brandon. It could stop funding you. Those are different things. His face reddened. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think Grandpa made sure I was separate from you. Thomas cleared his throat and placed the access log in front of my father. Mr. Whitmore, this is your signature on 3 inquiry requests. This one includes a notation that you claimed to be acting with Maya's knowledge. Is that accurate?" Dad said nothing. The room did not need shouting after that. It had signatures. The formal outcome of that meeting did not happen all at once. Real life is slower than a revenge fantasy, and paperwork does not explode. It closes doors one hinge at a time. But the doors closed. Crescent Union froze all third-party inquiries connected to my parents and Brandon. Trust Services transferred direct beneficiary communication to a private mailing address and encrypted portal only I could access. Nina referred the forged directive for review and sent a demand for preservation of the original notary records. My parents were warned in writing that any further attempt to contact the bank on my behalf would be treated as unauthorized interference. Brandon's loan did not go through. He left me 4 voicemails that night. I listened to the first 12 seconds of one before deleting it. Mom sent a long text about betrayal, family, and how Grandpa would be ashamed of me for humiliating them in front of strangers. I almost replied. Then I remembered the conference room. They had humiliated themselves by telling the truth where records could hear it. I did not move back home. The trust paid for a small apartment near the hospital while the longer review continued. The first night I slept there, I woke up at 3 a.m. because it was too quiet. No dad coughing downstairs. No mom opening cabinets angrily. No Brandon knocking on my door to ask if I could spot him money until Friday. Just quiet. I stood in the kitchen and drank water from a mug because I had not bought glasses yet. The apartment had white walls, a dented refrigerator, and one window overlooking the parking lot. It was not beautiful. It was mine. A week later, Elaine took me to see the duplex on Alder Street. I had passed that street 100 times and never known Grandpa owned anything there. The duplex was brick, modest, with black shutters and a small maple tree out front. One side had a tenant, a retired teacher named Mrs. Alvarez, who cried when she heard I was Arthur's granddaughter. He fixed my porch railing himself, she told me. Wouldn't take a dime. Said safe stairs were not a luxury. That sounded like him. The empty side of the duplex smelled like dust and old wood. In the kitchen drawer, I found a packet of rubber bands and 2 receipts from a hardware store dated 8 years earlier. I stood there holding them and cried harder than I had cried in the bank. Money had shocked me. Proof had steadied me. But that duplex broke me open because it was real. Grandpa had not left me an abstract number. He had left me doors, stairs, locks, rent, options. He had left me a place where no one could tell me to sleep in my car for refusing to risk my name. The investigation took months. The forged communication directive was traced to a notary my mother knew through church. The notary claimed she had been told I was sick and had authorized the paperwork verbally. Nina did not believe her. Neither did the review board. No one was dragged out in handcuffs. Real consequences were quieter. Their access was cut off permanently, their inquiries were documented, and the story that I had abandoned them for money collapsed because the money had never been theirs to offer. Brandon's business folded before winter. He posted online about lack of family support and how some people forget where they came from. Jenna, our cousin, commented with one sentence. Maybe stop asking women you insult to guarantee your loans. I liked the comment. It was petty. I am not a saint. But I did not use the trust to punish them. That mattered to me. Not because they deserved grace, but because I deserved not to spend my future orbiting their consequences. I paid off my car. I replaced the tires. I saw a dentist. I met with a financial advisor who explained distributions, taxes, property maintenance, and long-term planning in words that did not make me feel stupid. Then, I enrolled in a healthcare finance certification program I had delayed for 3 years because tuition felt impossible. The first tuition payment came from the trust's education provision. When I clicked submit, I cried quietly, the way you cry when your life stops bracing for impact. People ask what I did with the money. They want the satisfying version, the mansion, the luxury car, the public takedown, the family begging outside iron gates. That is not what happened. I bought stability. I bought silence. I bought a mattress that had never been in my car. I bought time to study. I bought locks that opened because my name was on the lease, then on the deed records, then on the trust portal, then on every account where my parents could not reach. The old Crescent Union card sits framed on a small shelf in my office now. It reminds me that protection does not always look powerful when you are holding it. Sometimes it looks like an expired card in a dead man's wallet, waiting for the morning after everyone else decides you have nothing. My parents kicked me out because I would not sign away my future for Brandon. They thought the rain, the car, and the empty backpack would scare me back into obedience. Instead, they pushed me toward the one door my grandfather had left unlocked. And when the bank manager saw that old card, he did not see a broke daughter asking for gas money. He saw the beneficiary my family had spent years trying to keep lost. They kicked me out with nothing because they thought nothing was all I had. My grandfather knew better. If your family threw you out and hid the one thing meant to protect you, would you confront them first or let the bank records speak?